Welcome to E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy, a podcast brought to you by the Empathy Collective, a consulting firm that helps business leaders inspire change, one conversation at a time. We are building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. Whether you are a blue-collar worker or white-collar worker, small business owner or corporate executive, you belong in this community. In today's society, we are craving connection. The same technology that increased our digital connections to friends and family around the world also promoted the decline of human interaction. My guests today met during the pandemic at the height of human isolation and have built a business that promotes human connection while supporting women who seek to thrive in every aspect of their lives. In this episode, we will talk about why human connection is so important for our well-being and how these two inspiring female founders are building a community that helps women achieve success through balance, not burnout. Let's welcome Meagan Fialkoff and Meagan Ayres, co-founders of The Modern Day Wife, to the show today. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Welcome to the show, Meagan and Meagan. You're actually the first guests where I have two guests on my show at the same time. I'm really excited about this because I actually think that's going to make the conversation a little bit more interactive than the usual one-on-one dialogues I have with people. And I was also super excited when you reached out to me about being a podcast partner for your events, because I had literally come out of an event here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I live, that was dedicated to founders and startups. And I was in a panel discussion only for female founders. And the premise of the entire dialogue was around how can we not only have a voice at the table as business owners, but also how can we support each other as women? How can we be successful in our businesses by connecting each other with important people that we want to connect with, or support what we're doing in our businesses rather than just trying to be on our own and trying to take things on our own. And then when you reached out, I was like, that's exactly what the Modern Day Wife is doing. You are bringing women together. You are creating a community where women can not only find a way to balance all the things that we balance in our personal lives and professional lives, but also help each other out and support each other so that we don't feel alone in this wonderful thing called life. So yeah, needless to say, I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We're like, so are we. I was like, we need the Modern Day Wife too. Right?
And I'm sure that's a big reason why you started it to begin with. And we'll get to that and your mission and what you're trying to achieve. But first, just tell me a little bit about your story. How did your lives intersect? I know you met during the pandemic. That must have been an interesting time to launch a business. Have you always been entrepreneurs?
Sure. I can get started. I can speak for both Megan and I, though, that we definitely have always had an entrepreneur spirit. I'm sure she can tell you some of her wild stories, but I think we were both like selling things at the age of 10 and getting everyone to buy into our ideas. So when we met, it definitely was a perfect fit. So to keep it short, because it actually is kind of a long story, Modern Day Wife started in 2018, 2019. So that was in Vancouver, Canada. So it was in 2018 when I actually saved the Instagram handle on the website. So I think this is kind of interesting because obviously we talk a lot about business and cultivating and starting a company. And I think a lot of us have great ideas and sometimes maybe it's just not the right time to start it. So that was kind of where my life was at in 2018. I had this great idea of this community, exactly everything that you said in the beginning of, okay, how do you actually handle life, right? I wasn't married. I wasn't in a serious relationship at the time. I'm actually married to that person now, but he was actually terminally ill, I guess you could say. He had Crohn's colitis. That's a whole other story. And I know Megan had this happen to her too, had gotten my appendix out. So I think yeah, it's crazy, right? So it's just like wild times. But it's interesting that sometimes when you slow down, you get really good ideas. So I realized when I was resting in bed, recovering from appendicitis, that something's got to change. This is not working. How do people actually handle life? Like, how do you have a career, handle a house, be married, walk your dog, pay your bills, feed your kids? This is just not realistic. Let's be honest. You need help. you need to figure out how you're going to do it. Who's helping you? So I was like, oh, what about the modern day wife? That name sounds cheeky. What about this woman who's aspirational? She wants to have goals, but she also cares about some of the simpler things in life. So that's when I saved the Instagram handle and the website. And it wasn't until a year later that I thought it would be a good idea to do an official launch party. So I launched, soft launched, I guess you could say, with a group of influencers. So I had this strategy from another company, but essentially I invited 20 influencers to a high profile brunch. And the whole purpose of this brunch was to make it kind of like, okay, who is the modern day wife? It was this thing that was just being launched, and all these ladies were influential in the Vancouver community because that's where it was. So that was just right before Christmas in 2019, which actually makes me think it's hilarious because this is actually how we do modern day wife. At the time when I was doing the brunch, I was literally in California. The brunch was the next day, and I had to hire someone else to set up my event because I was not actually physically there. So that's kind of a key part.
Were you in England?
No, I was in England before the actual launch party.
Okay.
I also was away before the soft launch party. So it just shows you, right? Like, you don't have to physically be that person who's going to do everything. So I hired my friend to help set up the brunch. So it was really cute. So in December of 2019, we had this fun brunch for Modern Day Wife, and it consisted of the pillars that we still have today. It was fun. It was this brunch. We had sponsors, and there was a mini fashion show. Super cool. We even had Botox at the event, like some of the things we still do now in present day, which is fantastic. Then fast forward to February of 2020. I was in England, but I had planned like the official launch party for Modern Day Wife. And I didn't even know if I was going to make it back to my own event. Crazy, like pretty wild. But it all worked out. And that was the same concept that we have now. There were speaker panels, there were pop-up booths, not on the scale that Megan and I obviously have taken it to, because having a business partner is fantastic and you can expand and make things bigger. But it was still the same concept. And then there was a fashion show. Then it became COVID, as we know. And so I convinced my friend Chelsea, who works with us now, to do a digital wives club. I was like, I don't want to not do anything with Modern Day Wife. Can we at least do something? So her and I put on these like random webinars to keep Modern Day Wife going. Just we would have speakers of influence come and teach the community something. So that kept it going. And then really, this is where Megan and I met, which was super cool. I at the time had a friend who was launching a book. Her name was Elena Cardone. And as part of a program that I was doing at my church, I really wanted to promote marriage more, and her book was on marriage. So her and I decided to do a book launch party that was virtual for her book, and we partnered with a charity. Meghan Fialkoff ran that charity. So that's like the tie-in of how her and I met, which was fantastic. And then from there, she, I guess, loved doing the event. We loved doing the event together. We had so much fun. And she was like, hey, let's talk after. Let's have a phone call. She can tell you that side of the story because it's kind of cute. And then the rest is obviously history. But that's how it all went down and came to be, which is kind of fun.
Also, I just want to say, this is kind of random, but what's really interesting too at the time is that once you get into this field, you see there's like all these different events going on. But I think when we were doing this too, we discovered a lot of these other women's events as we grew. Yeah. But we really did fashion what we do on our own. I was reading this book recently by the founder of Create Cultivate. Oh, it's called Work Party, the book. And she talks about how when you start, the copycats come and so on, right? When we started together, we did create all of this ourselves. We actually didn't have all these other examples. And so it is interesting, right? Because once we got into the field, we started seeing, oh, look what this one's doing and so on. But we actually weren't aware of any other organization really at the time that was putting on events like this. So kind of a random note, but I just thought of it.
It's true though. So true.
Yeah, and it just sounds like it all organically came together. So the charity that you were running, was this the drug related charity? Because I did some research on your background, Megan, and I saw a video on YouTube of you presenting at the United Nations. And how did that dovetail into, oh, this modern day wife concept sounds good. I'm going to move from the charity world over to the event planning world.
I still do a lot of nonprofit work, not to the magnitude that I used to or that I want to. But really what shifted was that I got engaged and I left New York. When I was in New York, that was pretty much going to be my whole life legacy, was the nonprofit. I ran it with my dad, and we have the same work ethic. And it's interesting because Megan's very similar in a lot of ways to my dad. That's why it's weird we met each other, even though she's a very feminine woman. But, you know, we don't believe in red tape, and we think big, and we move fast, and there's no long meetings. I never ask for permission. I like working with people where you don't even have to ask for permission. It's like, we know we're going to do the right thing, right? And so that's how it was with him. And I was going to continue that forever, to be honest with you, and just expand it, because I actually ran a few other nonprofits in New York that I was bringing up the line to. But I got engaged and I moved to LA. So I started doing more fundraising instead of the actual work. And so then I traveled around the world for about 4 years. And that was then 2020, and I got pregnant and I couldn't travel. So I didn't have a way to make an income, really. And in any event, when I moved to California, I really wanted to find a partner to create a business. And I would meet with people. I had this idea for this like Spanish English talk show concept. And I had a lot of people in the industry here. And I would meet with people and tell them my idea, thinking that everyone will do a part. And then I would get like an email. So what's happening on this? And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, I can't just always be the one who does everything, right? Yeah. And then I had an idea for staple outfits, like staple clothing you need. And I had a friend who was a stylist. And same thing, I said to her, but it was all these like, well, we can, and all this. So I never found like the right person, but I knew what I was looking for. So when I had met Megan, basically the first thing that happened was I saw how she handled, I was like an affiliate essentially, and all the money it was made was benefiting my nonprofit, my chapter at least, because I don't have the whole nonprofit, I just have the chapter. But so essentially I saw her Google Drive folders and how organized she was. And I was like, oh, someone's like me. I can't believe it. I'm always used to working with disorganized people. That was the first thing I was like really impressed by. And then we did an IG live together. And I don't know, I guess I just really liked her. Like, I don't know how I knew. It's really bizarre. And to just sum up the story was I had this like kind of this motto. I don't do phone calls. I don't text. Like, if someone needs to reach me, they can email me. I don't have time to talk to people. Because I really was that busy. And I also did find a lot of people that wanted my help. It was like a lot of it you could put in an email and I can easily answer you and move on, which is probably not the best thing for work. But I was running a nonprofit, so it was different. So I remember saying, I'm going to have a phone call with this girl. And that meant a lot to me. And so I was 7 months pregnant. I just knew that this was, I remember saying to myself, you just leap into this and just do it. When I look back, I mean, I guess I understood why I liked modern day, but just somehow I knew, it was just like a knowingness. I knew also I needed a solution for being a mother, that I couldn't travel anymore nights and weekends. And also I didn't know how long the pandemic would be. So I really needed a solution for an income. So I also was willing to do whatever it took to make this a profitable long-term company. Ideally, we sell this company one day and I can do nonprofit work full time. That is a little bit of my intention.
Got it. Well, that's incredible how you just jived, like you just knew. It's almost like when you find your future partner, like your life partner. I felt that with my husband, who I'm married to now. Just I barely knew the guy, and I just knew that he would probably be the one. It's like intuition is much more powerful than we all think it is. If we listen to our gut, it's rarely wrong. So tell me more. Now we know your backstory and how you got to where you are today. Tell us a little bit more about the premise of Modern Day Wife and what it means to achieve success in all aspects of life, career, home life, relationships. I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out. So love to understand how you were trying to infuse that into your business model and use your events as a way to bring people together and make life seem easier, balancing it all.
It's hard, right? To obviously do it all. This is like one of the concepts that we've learned, but you can. There's two things we've kind of unfolded, I guess, in the years of modern day life. That yes, some people have to, because everyone's life is set up different, right? Like this is obviously how society is. Things are so expensive. Things are so demanding. You can't catch a break. I live in Canada, like taxes 50% or whatever it is, it's just outrageous. You have to make so much money to actually be able to just buy the things that you want to have these days, right? So the man has to work and the woman usually has to work, or the man really has to make a ton of money, or the woman has to make a ton of money in order for things to just exist. So I think a lot of people are stuck in this rat race of life because it is just hard. So I think when you look at the community of the modern day wife, one of the things that Megan and I both love, and I think we just experienced it in Miami, is like it's almost this break from all of that for everyone who comes to our event because it's so much fun. It's so aesthetic. You can dream. You see people doing their passions. You see women who are making it go right, who, yes, they're struggling in some areas, but maybe they have some advice that can help you, right? The reality to say that everything is perfect and everyone's life is perfect or that person's life is perfect is like actually unreal. I think every single person has something that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that maybe isn't spoken about. But we're here to help each other. To me, that's really what the community has turned into. I even think of my baby shower, different things. Like I have all these connections from modern day wife that I can lean on when it's not even just related to business. Like it can be related to marriage, whatever the case may be. So I think when you look at it, it's just kind of understanding there's different chapters. When Megan and I met, she was going into motherhood, but she still wanted to work and still was doing that. For me right now, I'm going into motherhood. I had to rework my life, and that was like a 2-year progress in order to rework my life to have a kid, knowing how my life is set up with my husband, right? So I think sometimes it's just looking at the big picture in the future of where you're going. And modern day wife can help you with that because there is a community with all these resources. And I think it's also just being okay with wherever you're at in life. Like for me, I'm not able to work as much right now, and I've had to be okay with that. It's not saying it's right or wrong. Everyone's situation is different. So to me, it's like, okay, if you want to do it all, you definitely need to delegate and have help. Like that's non-negotiable. Or if you're not going to do it all, maybe you put something on pause and you're going to come back to it later. That's my viewpoint of it. But I feel like our community is trying to support whatever one is true for you.
I love that. You mentioned having resources available to women. What are those resources? I mean, apart from having the community and the network.
Yeah, well, there's so many, right? And we learn about a lot of these things. I don't think we realize how spoiled we are. We actually know so much, right? For example, just in the top of my head, I think of this woman who's this onboarding course we're doing for our sponsors next week, which you got an invite to. And one of them is this woman named Carrie. And her entire business is helping women with messaging, how to appear on camera, and so on, right? Before I ever was involved in Modern Day Wife, I didn't know that these things existed. For example, there's different companies we worked with on having virtual assistants that are in the US. Or another woman I spoke to once that had like this Uber, but it was for carpooling, for driving kids to all of their errands that were vetted drivers. Or even some things separate, let's say from business, beauty related, right? Like if you look at some of the videos I'll speak for myself, of me at the beginning of Modern Day Wife to now, I mean, I look pretty different.
Beauty, we get the glow up resources.
No, but I pay for a lot of it too. I know for every woman it's different, but for me, I've always loved being a girl, and I've always been a girly girl in regards to like beauty and supplements and collagen and different things you can do to work out or look your best and so on. That's definitely a big part of our events. One of the things I was also thinking about too in regards to what we do is it's also in some ways, yeah, it's very hard to be a woman right now, but in some ways we've never had more resources for so many things that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in this day and age. I was talking to this 24-year-old girl who was worried about aging this weekend.
Like,
I can tell her a few things.
Well, I was like, look, this is the best time to age. Like, we're so lucky. We don't have to worry about aging, really. Look at Demi Moore. So I should get off this topic, but there's lots of different things, whether it's the resources for having someone come wash your car, or different deals on cars, or how to improve your social media, real estate, or dating apps, all these various things. I mean, we've touched on everything. We've had events that are just on motherhood, right? We had a speaker once who came to speak about manners and etiquette. We've had everything. And you would have to kind of find these things piecemeal or think of it before. Whereas if you come to one of our events, you're exposed to all of that. So
I love that, having all of that in one place. And it probably opens up your eyes to the possibilities. Because I imagine if I set foot in one of your events, I might attend a talk or a panel discussion and uncover an idea or a resource that I never knew existed to begin with.
yeah, we've had a bag repair.
so many people. We even said we just finished the Miami event, but the celebrity panel was so good. I remember Megan and I turned to each other and we said, wow, we learned a lot. It's great to hear other people's viewpoints, right? Because sometimes, even myself the other day, I'm like, okay, I just need to take a different viewpoint, right? You get so fixated on work or whatever you're doing that it's almost, in a way, you can get stuck in that. So it was so nice to hear how other people deal with scenarios, because sometimes you're like, oh, I could apply that.
The thing I think also about the Miami celebrity panel is that all of them were pretty raw. And when I researched them before they were speaking, or Megan and I ever met them in person, it looks like their life is perfect. And then they come on a panel, and one of them specifically, who really looks like perfection, she did a whole reel post event on how she was that whole day so nervous about public speaking and everything she went through and so on. So you also get to hear how people really feel, as opposed to what you see on social media, which is, I think people should talk about that more on social media.
Yeah. It's fascinating, especially for younger women who were raised only in a digital world. And I'm a millennial, so I knew what it was like pre-social media as a young person. When I was a teenager, I didn't have Instagram or TikTok. What you see is not always reality. And that can shape a young woman's mind, thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not beautiful enough. And it makes it more real when you see this celebrity who looks perfect and probably has beautifully polished Instagram photos, actually be a bit vulnerable and say, I'm afraid of public speaking and this is what I was going through. That almost provides you a sense of relief, like, oh, I'm not the only one who's imperfect.
Yeah. I mean, adding on that note, just in social media for a second, the other thing that I've noticed on social media the past year is everyone's an expert. I think people should start their videos on, this is my opinion, or this is what has worked for me. Instead, everyone goes on like, this is the 10 commandments, and this is the truth, and this is how it is. And everyone apparently is the God of their own field. I think people should preface things like, this is what has worked for me, and so therefore I teach this philosophy. But there are other approaches, right? That's also another thing that I think happens on social media.
Well, it's good that you're bringing the more realistic conversations to the table at these in-person events, because I think, that's what people don't get on social, is those real heartfelt conversations, not just, the expert ideas that are shared. And this is a bit of a tangent, but the thing that's annoying me the most about social media right now is I get messages where it literally starts with, I'm not pitching. Like the person literally says, I'm not pitching. I've had like 5 or 6 of those in the last week on LinkedIn, where I just get a random person trying to sell me something, say, I'm not pitching, but.
I actually wanted to say this to our sales team this week. People shouldn't make other people wrong for doing business. Meaning, like, they shouldn't have to say, I'm not pitching. They should say, I am pitching because this is my job and here's the product and would you like to do it? Why are they apologizing? Sometimes if people ask to be removed from your list or they're so rude, and I get upset for my own staff when certain things like that happen, like, it's not okay with me, right? And which kind of comes to what your podcast is about in a second, because I also had someone recently who fired a client, and she was a bookkeeper, because she has a policy that if she has a client that's not nice to her staff and they go through a process, she will fire it to protect her staff. So I was looking at this and I had a realization this week, and I was like, you know what? It's actually not okay for someone to make you wrong for doing business. If that's their job, we're doing business here. I just had that realization recently. Why are we apologizing for doing business?
No, I think that you're spot on with that. It's true. It is interesting that you said that, because I remember I specifically wrote in an email this week, this is a paid package, just so you know, because it is paid, right? Like, this is the real world. I mean, sometimes it's great to do collaborations, and Meagan and I have built our business a lot on collabs, and it works sometimes and it's super beneficial. But at the end of the day, people have to make money to pay their bills. Just like Meagan said, we have to pay our staff, we have to put on the events. Other people need to make money too. So I think it's an interesting concept. So I agree with you. I don't think we should apologize, because the person running the clothing store, when the customer walks in, I'm going to dress you for free today.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. But imagine how great that would be. Oh, let me just go down to Gucci and please give me the garment for free. I want to sell you.
Imagine
I'm
trying to pitch you on this bag. But
I love this. We should put that in a post.
yes, we have a whole list. I have a whole thing I want to do on manners, by the way, because it's even just manners and emails and manners with interns on, like, dear Meagan, comma, capitalized first letter, end of sentence, goodbye salutation, right?
I have a whole story on that. It's not through Modern Day Wife, but another event I planned. I was shocked at someone's manners. I'm like, you're running a business and you want me to pay you $50,000 to do an event with you, and that's how you're going to email me? Absolutely not. And that's when I won't give someone my money.
Yeah. That actually ties in well, the whole manners thing, into the way you run your business. So obviously manners are important to you, and you're trying to instill that in your staff. The whole concept of your business is to create balance in women's lives. You're infusing that into your clientele, but how are you addressing that with your employees, and coaching them and training them and giving them the tools they need to be effective as staff members, but also ensuring that they feel safe to speak up if they're struggling or if they need additional support? What's your leadership approach?
Well, I think this is an interesting question, because I feel everyone has a different style, which is great, right? Because obviously the way I lead is going to be different than the way that Meagan leads. And I think that that's fantastic. If the whole world led the same way, you would not have a different product or result. For me, my biggest thing when I coach people is what I like to do, which has been successful, is knowing their job first. Obviously, if you have a bigger company, you have directors and other people under, and maybe you're not the person doing the job. But the reality is we're a smaller scale business. So Meagan and I have done most of the jobs in our business, so we know how to do them. And I think that's really helpful, because if you know the job, you know the expectation, but you also understand how long it takes to do something. So I love that, because I feel there's a great knowledge before you go into mentoring the person for the role, because you've actually done it. You're not asking Sally to do blah when you've never really done it or you don't understand it. So I think you start off on the right foot with, okay, Meagan knows what she's talking about. She's done it. She's going to help me. And I think the way you speak to other people is what you're going to get in return. That's my style. So I'm like, okay, here's what you need to do. Did you get it done? If you don't get it done, I'm fully willing to call you out on it. For example, the other day, I was working with someone and she made a spelling mistake. That's actually not okay. I understand you're busy, but you need to take the time to check that, because that's a problem, right? It's constantly being on top of your employees, because what happens is when you're not on top of them and they make these mistakes and you don't catch them, they're there sitting with all these mistakes that you don't know about. Have you ever experienced that? And then the employee gets mad at you and they're upset with you, and there's just this awkward energy. So it's good to just have open communication about, hey, this wasn't done correctly, but let's figure out why it was not done correctly. Let's take a look at it and how can it be improved? Because I'm all about taking responsibility, but I'm not going to take responsibility for everything. The other person has to be willing to meet halfway and see, okay, what could they have done in this situation? So that's my style, is keeping the communication open. And then one thing that's always worked for me is having a meeting with whoever I'm working with once a week, so they can come to me with anything that they're dealing with and we can talk about it. Otherwise, things fall off the beaten track and don't get done. That's what I think, because people need to be motivated. I had a handyman in my house come yesterday. I printed in the checklist with the pictures, and this is all you're going to do, because unfortunately, people just don't always see things. I don't mean it in a way that I'm better than that person or whatever, but they don't always know what to do. So it's making it very clear for them. So there can be no mistake, because when you assume, there's always a problem. And I've had a few of those this week. So that's my personal policy in my life. Don't assume that someone duplicates exactly what you mean, because they probably don't.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love your thoughts on this too, Megan, because we just heard your thought on that. Looking out for mistakes, having those regular touch points. The one thing that I teach leaders in the workshops that I run is a concept called power. Point out what was right and what you want to see repeated. POWRR. So you're not just looking for the mistakes, but you also recognize what the behavior you want to see. And then you're rewarding that employee, saying, hey, good job. You said dear at the beginning of your email, and you said best regards at the end, rather than just having a sentence in all caps. So I don't know if that's a philosophy that resonates with you, Megan. Or
I've had to do that more. Like, I have one girl who's really good at building long-term relationships and sales. So it might not result in a product right away, but she actually does end up getting it. So that is a strength of hers, right? So when I met with her recently, I did make sure to grant the rightness, to validate the rightness, and so on. Because the more that you validate, the more you're going to get of that. I work very, very fast. The only person is Megan or my dad who works as fast, right? So I do have a hard time understanding sometimes other people in regards to how fast or slow they work. I wake up every day. Sometimes I'm happy, but sometimes I feel really scared and feel like giving up and so on. So the first thing I kind of have to do is handle myself, or sometimes I don't handle myself and I just decide I'm just going to get the group motivated, because I also know if they're motivated, I'll feel better. So if I just pretend I'm feeling confident, then I'll just let them feel like everything's great. And then I know I'll then feel better because they feel better, right? I'm very unfortunately affected by other people's emotions. I can feel everything. I know when people are mad. I know everything that's going on with whatever anyone thinks. That's just, and it's hard on me because I experience those emotions on me in my space a lot. And I'm sure one day I'll handle that. But at the moment, that's how it is. If the team feels good, then I know I'm going to feel good. Okay, so how do I run the team? When I did the nonprofit, I had a program. So I would kind of just always refer to the program on, like, you need to do steps 1 through 5. And then I would just always refer to the program and get them to read it in writing. So I didn't have to re-explain things, and just make sure that they kept doing those steps of the program. Recently, one of our assistants created a checklist for us on our events. And so that has been helpful for me on knowing managing all the tasks I have and then assigning it to other people. We've gone through different methods of holding our staff accountable. So in the past, before we had this program called Asana, I would send an email, I would CC myself, and I'd have all the unread messages. But that's not that organized. So then later we found this program, Asana, and then everything goes into this program, and then it reminds everyone their tasks and it makes them accountable and so on. So throwing things onto that has been helpful on getting people to own their tasks. The way that I manage, which probably people don't like, but I do it anyways, is I will ask them to do things 100 times until it is done. Because it's not done until it's done. And I found when I don't follow up and make sure it's done, there's usually a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't have a swag bag at an event once, like the actual bag. And here we are, all these staff stuffing swag bags, and the person whose job it was didn't make sure there was a bag. So Megan and I, the owners of the company, are scrambling to get someone to bring us 350 bags within the hour. So we're not paying all these people. I've learned a lot from working with Megan in that regard. Sometimes you have to let people make mistakes so they learn from it. So we didn't make that person wrong. We're like, this can't happen again. But they learned, I'm sure, I think, from that. I think there's rightness in that. You have to let people make mistakes so that they learn from it. I've also learned with my staff recently, like the sales staff, I'm trying to get them to originate what they want to do that day, as opposed to me telling them every morning, do this, which will make them feel maybe like not great. Being like, what do you guys want? What's on your to-do list today? And getting them to originate what it is so that they feel better about it and they feel like I'm not like crushing them so much. So I found that has been better with the sales team. I hold myself very responsible and accountable, and I will do everything that I say I'm going to do. So I always feel if I set a good example that people will respect me. And then they know they can rely on me. We have this girl who books our influencers, and I will answer her message at any hour of the day because I highly value her and I want her to know that. And I always give her everything she needs. And I always try to make sure she feels good and acknowledged and so on. And I always feel like if I'm showing the example of what I want out of them, then they can see what I'm expecting.
I thought you made a lot of good points about providing a psychologically safe environment where people feel okay to make mistakes and learn from them. Obviously, if a mistake repeats itself, then something's wrong and needs to be addressed. But, knowing that we're not all perfect and stuff happens. And then, the role modeling piece, so ensuring that you as a leader are role modeling the behavior you want to see in your staff and are acknowledging when you see that behavior and you see someone actually doing it the right way, you're saying, hey, good job. I value you, and making yourself available to people who are, top performers and really delivering value for you as a business, showing that you were there for them and that you're with them throughout their journey. So very helpful.
Thank you.
Another thing that Megan also did recently was rewarding people who have a high statistic, right? So they're getting a result. We sent them a little gift card. They did above and beyond. We sent them something to acknowledge their hard work so that they feel valued and not just, oh, they don't care about me or they don't respect the extra time that I put in that I wasn't paid for, but I did a great job. So that's been like something successful that we did. And we did that last week. People do like to receive small gifts, even if it's not anything expensive. It did make them feel good because the messages that we got were amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have to kind of remember what it was like when you were young and you didn't know all the things or what you were like before. Maybe you did a lot of self-improvement. I've learned a lot working with Megan. She had a lot of corporate training that I didn't have. I had some other training that I remembered recently that I want to implement in our company, like writing programs and operating off programs, which I just stopped doing. And I don't know why, but she has a lot of corporate training that I didn't have in regards to like setting up teams and team leaders and stuff like that. Like that wasn't something I necessarily learned. I understood the concept of an organizing board and people have their positions and so on, but I guess I wasn't translating it into our own business because I was so coping and we were so, oh my God, the sales, that it's hard to extract yourself to do long-term planning. And I think that's something that we want to do now is we do need to make the time for more long-term planning as opposed to always worrying about the next event. So
this was a really fun conversation. It was nice to learn about your mission, but also to open the curtain and see what happens behind the scenes of running a business like yours and how the staff are treated and how you create balance for your staff and not just for the women who attend your events. So thank you for sharing that with us today. And for those of you who want to learn more, visit themoderndaywife.com. Their Instagram handle is also the Modern Day Wife. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about the Empathy Collective, check out our website, theempathycollective.com. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.